I regularly work with senior leaders and I love it very much. And as someone who has worked and collaborated with at least 100 engineering driven businesses, coming from Finland, known as the engineering country, many of the leaders that I have worked with are very pragmatic and pride themselves on being rational. They tend to believe leadership is a matter of process, not personality. I also work with their people, and their story is different, especially over the past decade. With nothing but constant change, their people have been more exhausted and cautious than driven and inspired. I love working with these pragmatic leaders. They're very smart, and I wouldn't say that they are bad leaders. Bad leaders do not care. My clients always care. They're often simply leading the way that they were led. With one particular client leader, his first manager was a hyper-efficient, emotionally distant engineer who believed that the best feedback was silence. Kind of like, I tell you if something is wrong, and if I say nothing, then nothing is wrong. So guess what my client learned? Silence equals approval, everything's okay. Distance equals professionalism, and emotion equals weakness. He, like so many of his leader peers, inherited a leadership style. And one day, sitting across from him in a meeting, I thought, we all carry these ghosts into our leadership roles, the ghosts of those who led us before. And I realized then that leadership culture isn't created in workshops. It's created in humans, inside us, within us. And every leader, every one of us brings our own, his story into the room. You are listening to the Story Driven Business Podcast. If you are new to this podcast, my name is Susanna Rantanen, and I'm known as the world's leading modern employer branding expert, trusted by B2B leaders who want their culture to become their competitive advantage. And this podcast is for business leaders, founders, co-founders, communications, marketing, and HR decision makers, anyone responsible for shaping how a company shows up to its clients through its people. If your leadership sometimes feels harder than it should, if you wonder why alignment slips, why people interpreted instructions differently, why some teams thrive when others stagnate, I think this episode is going to help you understand why. Most of us B2B leaders mistakenly believe that our leadership culture is defined by values, strategy decks, and offsites with sticky notes. But the real leadership culture is a lot simpler and much more confronting. It's you, just like it's me. It's your behavior, just like it's my behavior. It's your habits, your tone, your emotional patterns, your view of the world. The way we show up in our roles as leaders, the way we carry ourselves as leaders becomes the way our people think that they should show up too. And this is the uncomfortable truth. Your leadership style is shaping your business and people's behavior more than your strategy is, unless they are strategically combined. So I want to talk to you about behavioral science, which is what I love very much. There's this guy called Albert Bandura, and he has a very famous theory that is called the social learning theory. And this theory captures how we lead the way we were led because we observe and we imitated our leaders' behaviors, especially the kind that was applauded and rewarded by those people whose opinions we cared the most. So in short, the social learning theory tells us that humans learn by observing others. It emphasizes the role of modeling, imitation, and reinforcement instead of us experiencing rewards and punishments personally. We simply watch what happens to others and then adjust our behavior accordingly. This is not only powerful in the way you and I learn, but also when we need to change how our organization, as in our people, behave and learn. A need that has been super challenging yet critical in the many business transformations companies have been going through since the digitalization, then COVID pandemic, inflation, world politics, tariffs, remote working and selling, and most recently, the way AI has been and is expected to change our businesses beyond tools and technology and our ways of work. So we all learned leadership from past managers, our first boss, the leaders we admired, and the leaders we feared. That early modeling creates our default setting as a leader. And unless we reflect on it regularly, we repeat it until the end of times. You get the feedback from your people. You have to reflect, which means literally looking at your reflection and thinking, are you the kind of leader that people will talk about in a positive manner or in a negative manner when somebody asks them about the place that they work, or when in years to come they want to become leaders? Are you the kind of leader they learn from in a positive way? Every leader has a behavioral blueprint made of a personality, personal values, beliefs, fears, our morals, comfort zones, insecurities, strengths, stress responses, emotional intelligence, prior experience, you name it. This blueprint travels with us into every meeting, every decision, every conflict, every social situation as a leader. Some of these work for us, and some of these are quietly sabotaging us. Now, here's the fascinating part. Your individual leadership habits form the collective leadership culture of your B2B company culture because humans mimic what they see. So the more leaders, the more of collective leadership culture is being mimicked by what people see in the ways that leaders behave and collaborate, how you treat each other, how you listen, how you value each other's opinions, how you behave in social circumstances, how you deal with conflicts, and so on. So it doesn't matter one bit what the HR states as your leadership principles. You will continue leading the way you feel the most comfortable unless those principles match your comfort zone, or you are supposed to reflect and relearn new leadership traits. And it also helps if your business rewards and punishes leaders for the wrong and right leadership behavior, which hardly ever happens, but I strongly recommend putting that kind of rewarding and punishment system into action. Simple leadership bonus will do. You have to get a signal. This is the kind of behavior that we want you to reinforce, and this is the kind of leadership behavior that cannot happen again. But you can't leave your leaders alone. People need support to reinforce the positives and get rid of the negatives. Replace those with positive leadership behaviors. Unless your collaborative leadership style and culture is addressed, your personal comfort zones become your team's limits. Your blind spots becomes their frustrations. Your energy becomes their energy. Your insecurities become their caution. Your strengths become their strengths. Your tolerance becomes their workplace standard, and your tone becomes the company's tone. Now, leadership is not just a role. It's way more than that. It's a signal of behavior, of decision-making style, of values, ethics, morals, how you appreciate people around you, how you value others around you. And it doesn't matter what it states on your walls as your values or as your leadership principles. It's your behavior that becomes the signal of what is approved, welcomed, and what's not. Now let's go even deeper, because I know that us B2B leaders also love facts. Human brains copy the emotions, the tone, behavior of the person in power, and leaders literally set the brainwave temperature of the room. This is science. Teams adapt to repeated behavior like clay taking shape. If you've ever done ceramics, you know how you shape the clay to a form that you wanted to become, teams adapt to behavior like that. So if your patterns stay the same, their patterns are going to stay the same. We also gravitate towards what feels familiar, and this is called the cognitive bias. Unchallenged leaders recreate all leadership patterns, even the bad ones, without even really noticing it. Amy Edmondson talks a lot about psychological safety, and her research shows that people only speak up when leaders model curiosity, openness, and humility. Otherwise, people stay silent. So if you see a group, they're not gonna speak up. They have not been able to model openness and curiosity and humility from their leader. They stay silent. We also respond to stress. So your stress behavior becomes your team's crisis behavior. I have been there. I don't ever want to go back there. If you shut down, they shut down. If you panic, they panic. If you get solution focused, they get solution focused. And this is how the leadership culture forms in reality. Leadership behavior becomes team behavior, becomes organizational behavior. But you can actually manage this and lead this. Why does this all matter for B2B leadership? Well, this is not soft stuff. This is really hard business logic. In B2B organizations, your people are your product, and the way they make customers feel is actually your brand. And your product behaves accordingly to the leadership it receives, turning your leadership culture and how your people feel about it into your employer brand. And that equals your business brand in the B2B industries. B2B companies do not often have any other brand than how people feel about your organization's behavior, the behavior of your people, your leaders, your salespeople. And that is what becomes the brand, because the brand is an emotional connection to how this object of the brand or the subject of the brand makes me personally feel. So I want you to make a note of this. Your leadership culture is the way that you personally choose to lead. And this impacts retention rates, performance consistency, customer trust, customer lifetime value, talent attraction, the successful execution of the business strategy by your team or in your team, innovation capabilities, communication, trust in your company's leadership, just to mention a few pretty hardcore facts. And here's the kicker. People don't leave companies. They leave leadership cultures that feel unsafe, unclear, or uninspiring. And we've all been there. I've had this happen to me too when I wasn't in my best form. That's life, but when you reflect it, you can learn from it and you can make sure that you don't repeat your past bad behavior. So I reflected hard and made changes. And I keep reflecting, adjusting with the knowledge that I don't need to be perfect, but I need to make sure that whatever I do and however I lead makes sense to my people. Companies stay small because leadership stays small, and companies grow when leadership grows. Before I close this episode, I want to share with you what I believe and have witnessed great leaders doing differently. First of all, they reflect. Then they challenge their old patterns. They're not expecting someone else to tell them what they need to do differently. They are constantly reflecting their behavior, how that affects other people, how that affects their own mood and their own feelings. And then they challenge those old patterns so that they can evolve. They observe themselves. They forgive themselves for leadership mistakes, because we all make mistakes, and allow others to make mistakes too. And they ask one question every morning: what story am I teaching my people about how we lead here? And this reflection alone can change your entire leadership trajectory. And I want you to pause and consider, who taught you to lead? Or did anyone? Did you learn from watching, mimicking, imitating? Which parts of their leadership still live in you, and why? Which patterns serve your people? Which patterns sabotage your own growth? What behavior are you teaching and sharing, intentionally or not, on a daily basis? What would you change if you chose your leadership identity consciously instead of inheriting it. I think this is where leadership culture begins, with self-awareness. You've been listening to me, Susanna Rantanen. If this episode gave you anything new, a new way to see your people, your business, or your leadership, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Maybe it's a colleague, a CEO, a founder, fellow founder, a leadership team. And feel free to share it on your social media. See you again next week.